We also announce it that we have started. Okay. And let me check if everything is working fine. Everything is working fine. Okay. Oh, your camera disappeared, by the way.
Sorry, just
Oh, no. I thought that it's
yeah.
on my end something. No, it's okay.
No, sorry, my bad.
No, it's okay. I thought that I pressed something. Okay, I will also share the game's Steam page on my chat as well, so people can check it out. And refresh. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Okay, it's working perfectly. Okay, let me sit into my original position here. And yeah, ladies and gentlemen, please let us know if you can hear us, you can see us. There is no lag, there is no drop in the stream. Please let me know. Please let us know so we can start. Please let us know. Let us know. I will check myself as well again, just to be 100% sure, and then we can actually start. Sure, and then we can actually start. Kezdhetünk, hölgyek, urak. Jó az audiós videó minőség? Ladies and gentlemen, can we start? Let us know in the chat. Is the video and audio quality good? Please let me know. Minden jó? Okay. Okay, they're saying everything's fine. Let me know if you're also down to start.
Yeah,
I'm talking to you. Sorry. Yeah. Okay, so welcome everyone in the very new episode of my Dev Live show. I'm here today joined with the creator of the game franchise called 8-Bit Adventures, and I'm very honored and very thankful that he joined us for today's episode. And like I'm always saying, let's start with a little bit of introduction, so please introduce yourself for us.
Sure. So my name's Josh Hallaran. I'm an indie developer from Australia. And I pretty much mostly develop like Japanese-style turn-based RPGs like you'd find in the sort of 80s and 90s and a little bit of the early 2000s. So I'm the creator of the 8-Bit Adventures series. 2 games, so technically a series, but not too deep into it yet. But the second game just launched on PC last year, and just on October 16th, it came out on Nintendo Switch, PlayStation 4 and 5, and Xbox One and Series consoles. So, yeah, big things going on.
I see. Thank you for that. Okay, so my very first question would be, what was your very first contact with video games as a player, if you remember those times of your life?
That's always the hard question. I wish I knew exactly what it was. I mean, like, I remember old DOS games, that we had on Disc My Family,
I see.
And that sort of thing. But I think like the real major point for me was when I got my Nintendo 64, and sort of like playing Super Mario 64 for the first time, and just like really just taking in what video games could be. I always talk about that. In the lobby of the castle, if you look at the walls, they have like clouds painted on there from the first level of Mario 1. And, that was like a real moment for me where I was like, hang on, who painted those clouds on this like wall in this video game?
Yeah.
And that's when, sort of my mom told me, oh, it must have been the people that made the game. And I was sort of like, oh, you can make games?
Nice.
So, that's like Mario 64 would definitely be one of the most like major early experiences, I'd say.
I see. And when was the click, when you had that click that transitioned you from not just loving games but to actually wanting to make them? And what was your very first step into like making your own game? if you remember that.
I think it probably would have been Ocarina of Time,
Okay.
which really kind of got me interested because like
Okay.
Ocarina of Time was one of the first games I played, which was really story heavy,
I see.
in the sense of like having cutscenes and all that sort of thing. So that really got me interested in games as a like medium for storytelling. I'd always, even though I was only young and I was just writing, terrible, one-page stories and stuff like that. I was really interested in storytelling from an early age. So I think once I sort of got my that in my head for video games, that was what really started to click. I mean, early on, I tried Game Maker and a few of the other
I
free
see.
ones that were out there. But really, where it all clicked for me was sort of the early RPG makers.
I see.
Um, I as I got a little bit older, I became a very big fan of Final Fantasy and Legend of Dragoon and just basically all the JRPGs that were coming out at the
JRPGs, yeah.
time. So yeah, and so really just like RPG Maker was like, oh, I can actually understand this. I can figure out how these tools work, and I can start putting things together myself, fairly quickly. So it was satisfying to work on because it felt like you could actually make progress. Uh, and I mean, even just as like a kid with a few hours of spare time. So yeah.
I see. I see. And was it something that you were working on like as a normal job as well? Like you worked on your own games full time, or you did a very different daily job at that time when you
So
like started making your own games?
yeah, so it's been a bit of a mix,
Okay.
but generally speaking, for the last several years, I've been just going full time
Okay.
on 8-Bit Adventures 2 because I mean that game took 9 years to make and it wasn't going to get done any other way. So
I see. I see. I see. I see.
yeah, so but I've done sort of contract work and I've done like websites for people and just odd jobs here and there for different things. Yeah, just
I see.
whatever fit my skill set. Yeah.
I see. I see. I see. I see. And how do you feel about like were your close friends and family supportive about the decision that you want to make games? How do you feel about that? I know it's
I
a more
think
personal
everyone.
question.
No, sure, absolutely. I mean, they were actually. I'm very lucky because I've got a very supportive family. But when I sort of started, when I really started making games, I think it was a little suspect because it's hard to make it as an indie developer.
True. True. True.
And certainly the stuff I was doing at the start, like I was still very much learning the ropes of game development, as you do. Like you really need a few projects, I think,
True.
to understand the scale of the
To have
work
that
and understand how all
experience.
this stuff is together.
Yeah.
Yeah, experience I think is like the most key element in game
True.
development.
True. True.
And so yeah, I think there was definitely some trepidation from family members about like, oh, is this actually going to go anywhere? But yeah, I think I'm starting to get to the point where that's passed.
I see. And were they like calming down when they realized that you're getting somewhere and your game is finally shaping up to be released?
Yes, I think particularly over sort of the last couple of years now that 8-Bit Adventures 2 is out, I think it's nice because I mean, for years and years and years, it's basically, oh, how are you doing? I'm working on the game. It's just
It will
over
be
and over
out
and over.
sometime, right? Just not
Yeah,
too
because I
long.
mean,
Yeah.
the family doesn't know about games and like understand game development sort of in
I
any
see.
meaningful way. So it's sort of it seems impossible that game development could take so long if you're not in it. So yeah,
True, true, true. Do you think, by the way, it's important to have a supportive surroundings for
very
your?
yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, I mean, look, indie development can be a fairly lonely process in some
I
ways.
see.
Because if you're, I mean, like me, just like in a bedroom working on your game on a computer, you're not like mixing with people. You're not sort of out and about. You sort of roll out of bed, go onto the computer, and start work. I think having sort of that support network, family, friends. I mean, even just people online that you connect with, right? I think it
True,
really
true,
does
true,
help
true.
to keep the your sort of mental state in a much nicer place.
I see, I see. And so the first part of the series wasn't released to consoles. If I'm correct, it was just released to
Mhm.
PC, right? But you
That's
decided
right.
to release the second part to other platforms as well. What was the idea behind that decision, and why you haven't released the first one to like I would like to
So
understand
the
that.
trouble with the first one is basically that it was made in a like 2005 game engine,
Okay,
and so porting it is just kind of not really a viable possibility.
I
Like
see,
it,
I see, I see, I see.
that engine struggles on PC in some ways. So trying to sort of then get that working on modern systems just it's really like you would take a lot of effort for probably little gains. So like my mindset has basically been like, okay, I've put all the money I've earned and sort of all the time and effort into the sequel. I've made a really good game.
I see,
It's designed to be like an entry point for anyone. So let's get that out to as wide an audience as possible.
I see.
And then what I want to do with the first one now is remake it in a newer engine.
Oh, okay, so
Give it a
you're
fresh coat.
remaking it. Spoiler time.
Well, not yet, but that's kind of been the takeaway because so many people have sort of been interested and
Yeah, I
asked, and I
saw
mean a
that,
lot of
and me
people.
too. Yeah, exactly, exactly. That's
Yeah,
why I
okay,
asked. Yeah,
okay,
yeah,
so there you go.
yeah.
So it just seems like the kind of thing where okay, well, yeah, if we could give it like a fresh coat of paint, if we could like
I
make
see.
bring it up to where the sequel is, I think that would be great then because you could have the complete story on every
True,
platform.
true, true, true. By the way, are the stories connected to each other? So are they like sequels to each other, or they are separate words, and you can understand the story of the second one if you play just that one? So how does it work?
So you can definitely understand the second one if you just
Okay,
play that one. Like
okay.
I've put in everything, but it is a direct sequel.
Oh, okay. So it's a direct
So
sequel.
so
Okay,
yeah, so like there's three characters that you name at the start of
I see.
8-Bit Adventures 2, and they are the characters
I
that you
haven't played the
named at the
first one.
start of
That's
8-Bit
why I
Adventures
asked.
1.
So I haven't played the
Yeah,
first one or the
right, yeah.
second. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
I
so
will have
that's
to. I had a feeling before that I will have to play the first one, so I will rather start with the first one than on PC. Okay, okay, it makes sense.
but seriously, like you really don't need to because like everything does get like properly explained,
I
and
see. I see.
it's been really nice seeing players be like, yeah, you really don't need to play the first one because most people have come into the sequel without any
That's a nice touch
experience
from you
prior.
that if they cannot, for example, they are not playing on PC, but like me playing more on console, then they can pick up the
Yeah, yeah.
second part on console, and yeah, yeah. Okay.
I think that was important, and it's basically just like if you do then go back and play the first one, it just kind of adds extra context
Yeah,
to
true, 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 very true. An
characters in
extra
the world and
meaning.
stuff like
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
Yeah,
Opens
yeah,
up the
but not necessary.
field of the game, yeah, or the story of the. Yeah. So I believe that all of us creators who make our own craft, it will be also again a personal question. I hope that you don't mind it. So I believe that all of us creators who make our own craft, we tend to share our own experiences in it, our own memories, losses, and everything we like felt and had in our past. Is it true for you, this statement of mine, by the way?
Oh, I think so. I mean, I think it'd be hard to create anything without drawing
True,
on
true, true,
your own
true, very true,
experiences.
very true, very true.
That's really our only reference point. I often joke that like each character kind of represents like one sort of challenge that I've had and sort of one like positive trait as well.
I see,
So
I see, I see, I see.
I think yeah, there's a lot of me. I mean, particularly like I'm a writer and all that sort of thing. So I think there's definitely a lot of me in the story and the characters and just life experiences. Yeah.
I see, I see. And so, when was the first time that you came up with the story of the very first part of this of franchise?
Yeah, that's actually it's a long story, that one.
Okay,
So the original 8-Bit Adventures one was developed in 2012
okay,
and released in January of 2013,
okay,
and it was terrible.
okay. But why?
Yeah, it was a very, very different product from what is on Steam right now. It didn't
It
really.
felt
I mean, I think
terrible.
it's.
Wait, wait, wait. Sorry for interrupting you. It felt terrible to you or the players? I want to know that because it's not.
Uh,
It's not the same, right? If it felt wrong to you or the players.
I was happy with it just before it came out, and then sort of viewing it through like the lens of getting feedback. It's like, okay, some people really like it,
Okay.
but I also completely see where the people that don't like it are coming from, and
I
it's
see.
like
I
I could
see. I
do a lot
see.
better than this.
I see.
And so that's it was sort of just like an early case of like let me try and make like a full JRPG style game.
I see.
And but I sort of I took too much inspiration from sort of the early NES
Okay.
RPGs. So like silent protagonist, not a lot of story, sort of a little harder than maybe it should have been. Things like that weren't going to play as well with people, uh, nowadays in a lot of cases. Um, but just in general, yeah, I don't rate it very highly. So what I did then was I got a message from someone, I think it was 2014,
Okay.
saying that, oh look, you should get this onto Steam, and that back then it was Steam Greenlight. And I was sort of like, oh well, I really appreciate it, but I don't think the game is good enough. So what I'll do, but yeah, I wanted to get on Steam because that was a huge thing at the time. And so I basically just was like, okay, I will revamp the game. I will get it up to a standard that I think will be good enough to release on
I
Steam and
see.
that
I
people
see.
will
I
really
see. I
like.
see.
So I basically spent then like the next year doing a complete overhaul of the game. So I added in a ton of story. I changed dungeons. I changed the balance. I added abilities. I did just practically a different game. But
Is the
and then
first
that was the version that
is
released on Steam.
is the first version available somewhere to play? By the way.
I don't think it is anymore. It was,
Okay.
but I think the websites it was on went down.
I see.
I
I'd be
can't remember what
interested
it was.
to compare how they were connected to each other. That's why I
Yeah,
asked you,
oh no,
right?
I've given it out to a few people that have asked over the years. So but yeah, no, it's yeah, just like a very rough first draft, I'd say.
I see. I see.
Um, yeah, but yeah, technically the first game started very early on, and I've just sort of developed it over the many years since then.
Okay. Okay. And after you like finished and shipped the new version of the first part, uh, was it like immediately that you started working on the second part of it, or did you
Yeah, pretty
take a
much.
break out of it?
So it was pretty much just like straight after. It's like, okay, people are really liking this. I'm getting like better feedback than I ever had before.
Okay.
People are really connecting with it, and so it's like, okay, I'll make a sequel. I've got some money now, so I can hire an artist. The composer was coming back. It's like it felt like, okay, I can make like the game that I wanted to make now,
I see.
because I had some money behind me.
I see.
Um, and but obviously at the time I was like, okay, I'll make this in 2 years, and 7 years later it came out on PC, and then another 2 years later it came out on consoles. So
But it's a good game
yeah,
and it's an awesome game. So it's I
thank
think
you. Yeah, no,
it really takes a lot of time if you are working on something bigger than you expected, right? So in my
I
opinion at
think
least.
bigger than expected is exactly the way to put it, because I wrote down a detailed plan in 2015 after the first part came out, and I basically stuck to that plan the entire time because I felt like it was really good, and it was, you don't want to, more changes
You can
obviously creates
always
more
add
work.
something to the kitchen
Yeah,
table, right?
yeah, but obviously the plan was too big, right? Like for the scale that I wanted the game to
I see.
be and the amount of time I wanted to take, like the plan was just way too big, and so that's why development sort of spiraled out. But since it was turning out really well, I thought, well, no, I'll stay on course and see it through.
I see. Were there, by the way, any segments of your first or the second game that you had to cut out from the project?
There was not so much from the first game, because that was kind of just made, like, because it was a revamp, like in the
Yeah,
end,
true,
right? It
true,
was
true.
basically just made to be what it was. But for the second game, most things were kept in.
I
The
see.
main thing that got cut out was a dream mechanic.
Okay.
So basically, the idea was, I don't know if you've ever played Final Fantasy VI.
I played it, yeah.
Okay, so in that game, if you sleep at the inn in the second half of the game with Shadow in your party,
Okay.
he'll have dreams about the past.
I think I remember
And
that, yeah.
yeah,
I'm not
yeah, and
sure
and
if I
so
remember that correctly, but something was like that in that game, yeah.
they've sort of felt very like a bit random if you didn't know the cause, but
Okay.
yeah, I mean, obviously people have figured out why it happened,
I
but
was a kid back then when
um,
I played that game,
yeah,
so
exactly,
don't
right?
blame me for that. Yeah.
Exactly. But yeah, no. So I really like this idea of, okay, you can go to the inn, and like
I see.
one of the characters will have a dream about their past, and like that'll give you some extra backstory and all
I
that
see.
sort of
I see.
thing.
I see. I see.
And so I figured, oh, and after you've gone through every character's dream, then you can fight like an extra boss or something like that.
Oh, okay.
Like in the dream world, or something like that. It was a fun idea, but it wasn't really central to anything in the game. It was sort of just bonus material.
I see.
So as the years dragged on, it was like, okay, that was an easy cut to make.
Are you
Just
planning
to
to add
just to
Joe in the future, or if you make another game, then to bring it again
so
back?
the interesting thing is, so I'm working on free DLC
Okay.
right now for 8-Bit Adventures 2,
Okay.
which should hopefully be coming out early next year. And that is actually all based around the idea of dreams.
Okay.
And the basically sort of a couple of the new bosses that are in that were originally from this like dream mechanic idea from the base
Idea.
game.
I see. I see. I see.
Yeah, so and I've thought as well that like okay, if I do end up remaking the first game, then maybe like some of those character dreams could also like move into that game or something
I
like that,
see. I see.
So yeah, no, no idea is abandoned forever.
Yeah, that's why I wanted to say that those are still there for you to be able to use them in somewhere. Yeah.
Exactly, you don't have to fit everything in one
True.
game.
True. 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 Very true.
Yeah.
Okay. You were talking about that the very first version of your first game was hard. Do you believe that you wanted to make these games hard as they were in those eras when we used to play them as kids, these JRPG games, or did you want it to like be available uh, as for these
I,
games for more players, not just hardcore fans of JRPGs?
yeah, I think accessible is the word, right? Like
Okay.
just to like 12 years ago I was like, yeah, let's make the game really hard. Let's make it, like real NES style. But after that it's like, well actually that really doesn't make sense when you're trying to hit, an audience of all kinds of players,
True,
right?
true, true, true.
So, one of the things that I really try and do is just balance the game very tightly
I see.
so that there's no mandatory grinding. You don't have to fight every single battle or anything like that, or fight an obnoxious number of battles. Like the idea is really just that the player can have a smooth
I
experience.
see.
And I think what that does is then so long, it keeps the player at the level that they should be, even if they're sort of slightly above or below the perfect threshold. And what that means is that any encounter, it really comes down to strategy. So I'm a big believer in sort of challenge through making the player sort of use the tools that they have, not like obscure tools or anything like that, but just the idea of like there's all these strategies that you can put together through all these abilities that each character has and all the equipment you've collected. And so it's like I want the player to use those tools without being punishing about it. So it's a lot of things like for example, if you get a game over in 8-Bit Adventures 2, there's just a retry button, so you just press that, you're back into the battle. If you want to change your equipment loadout before the retry starts, you can do that as well.
I see.
So just really, I guess it's about not like taking away challenge entirely, but it's about taking away any sense of friction or sort of like extra busy work that you have to do to overcome a challenge. It's really more just about like think this through and like get a little better at like understanding what the fight is if you're
I
having
see.
trouble.
I see. I see. I see. So more personal question would be again from me. Do you think like by making games and following your dream career of making your own craft that you always wanted to do, have you found yourself in your life as a person? Do you feel like
It's a good question.
it's your place to be now and you are happy with your life that you really like stepped into the video game industry and not like any other boring job that would be boring for you?
I definitely I don't know that I could be anywhere else. I think yeah, just I really just am like so the way I always describe myself is game designer and writer.
I see.
And like I think that idea of like telling a story and telling it through both gameplay and sort of narrative, that's just what I feel like I'm best at.
I see.
That's what I feel like I really understand. I I don't know the rest of my life is as together as that, but I definitely feel very uh sure about like I'm in the right industry
Okay.
for me and in the right kind of business. So yeah.
I see. I see. So again, a more personal question would be from me: how have you feel that? How have you changed as a person in other territories of your life that you were speaking of just now, as from being a game developer yourself?
I think I've probably gotten more patient.
Okay.
Just because game development requires so much patience.
Is it
Um,
something that you were
I
lacking of before stepping into making video games? Do you feel like that?
not drastically, but I just think I've really, I don't know what you'd say. I guess I don't take things as seriously
Okay.
in some ways. I sort of, have a bit more of a I don't know what
Fun?
you'd say, a mellow approach to
Oh, okay,
things.
okay, okay.
Than I used to. I just I don't stress about things. I sort of take a big picture
I see.
approach because obviously, developing a game, you're always looking at that big picture. So I think that's probably one element, and also just through doing storytelling and writing all kinds of different characters, I do think there is sort of uh, I don't know what you'd say, a extra burst of empathy
I see.
that you get from that. Like you really take an interest in, even though they're fictional, you're taking an interest in people's stories as such, and so I think that does then translate to the way that you
I
interact
see.
with and sort of pay attention to people in real life.
I see. I see.
Stuff like that.
Okay. Okay. And so, as for the core message of the full franchise that you made, what do you think like the core thoughts and the core like ideas are there that you want to, or you always wanted to share with those players who play your games? Like, what would be like the very core message, if you would like to
Yeah,
describe it?
yeah, it's always a good question. I think one element, particularly with the second game, is just this idea of sort of um, you know, what does it mean to live a full life, and sort of
Okay.
what gives life value, and sort of each character does tackle that question in a slightly different way,
Is
and
it
I
something,
think
by
they.
the way, that you are interested in your real life too? Do you think like it's because you're connected to this idea of yours and thoughts of yours that you are
Yeah,
putting?
I think to some degree for sure.
Okay.
Yeah. Not I think sort of the answer that I've arrived at in life is just like a very simple one. Whereas it's basically just like being uh, you know, uh having people that you really connect with around you, and just being kind and helpful
True.
to
True. True.
anyone
True.
that you encounter. Just like very little things,
True.
right?
True. True.
So one of the things in Ape Adventures 2 is the character of Charlie, because he has this sort of hero worship element to his character, where he's a big fan of one of the characters from the first game, because of his relationship with her. He really thinks that, to live a meaningful life and sort of to uh, pay back everyone that supported him along his journey so far, he needs to sort of become something really special, be a hero, save the world, do some huge dramatic thing. And sort of the answer by the end of the game is much more simple. And especially the idea as well that, like, people that help you along your way, they aren't looking to get something from you, right?
True.
They're
True.
not
True.
like sort of like making an investment in you as
True.
such.
True.
They're
True.
just
True.
they
True.
just want to
True.
see you flourish and succeed in the way that will make you happy.
True.
um
Very true.
so just a lot of stuff like that, I'd say. Just the idea of what's valuable in life
True.
to each of these characters, and where they start versus where they end.
Yeah, but that's very true for our own life in real life, right? So, and I can
Hmm.
relate to that topic that you just mentioned now, because I think we all thrive to like be bigger in some way and to like be there for people. But sometimes what
Hmm.
really matters is just the small things that we are doing for each other, right? Just a kind thing if we are being able to do that. But of course, like I'm always saying, a lot of people are even not being capable of doing like kind things, and that's a really bad thing in our life and needs to be
I think
changed.
that's the thing, right? Is this just that, like, I think a lot about that idea of sort of unity and connection,
True, true.
and just how we're sort of more connected than ever, yet
True, true, very
we're less
true.
unified in
And it
so many
feels so
ways. So
simple to talk about, right? But when it's
hmm,
like more than two or three people around, then it's like really very hard to like make them
it
as a group
is.
understanding each other and being kind to each other. Yeah, it's
That's it.
really
And I mean, it's just the kind of thing where I don't know. I try not to sort of put anything overly like I try not very hard on social media and stuff like that, just to like only sort of put like positive things out. Like even if someone sort of sends me a negative comment, I really try and be positive and that sort of thing. And I often find that usually diffuses any negativity
True, it's very
if
true.
you
Yeah,
actually
because
are
like
like that.
they won't understand themselves why they are being so negative about it, right?
Exactly,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so I think that there's a lot that we can do, sort of just like as we interact with people, and of course,
Exactly.
as a developer, you interact with a lot of people. So yeah, I
Have you
always try
ever
to be mindful of that.
have you ever had those times when people were toxic about their opinions due to
Hmm.
your games? Because you were talking about
Yeah,
that sometimes you've had like negative people talking to you.
most people are really, really nice. Like honestly, like I'm continually surprised that I most like 99% of the time I just seem to get absolutely lovely people. But every now and then you'll get someone that's just like, look, please just like, I understand your opinion. It's I don't share it. Clearly, so yeah, most of the other people that are playing the game don't share and that sort of thing. So like, just let it rest.
Was it something?
it, it, it it's
No,
the
go
people
for it.
that sort of keep posting over and over, right? That
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
like
the angry people.
I,
Yeah,
it's
who has this
just you just
replay
don't really
button
get
of
it.
angriness, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. And it's just always seemed baffling to me because when it happens. But yeah, I just try and respond politely and sort of in a neutral tone, and you know address things as much as I can. I mean, sometimes like negative people, like people express something really negatively, but they actually have a reasonable point.
True, but
They're
they
just
can't
expressing it like
express.
in an
Yeah,
angry
that's what I
way.
wanted to say. That
Yeah.
they can't express themselves properly.
And
Yeah.
so usually if I sort of can hone in on that point and sort of touch on that and like, give a rational explanation and
True. True.
talk in a polite way, it's like usually then that sort of brings them on board, and
True. True.
it sort of changes the entire conversation. And it's really nice when you can sort of turn like, someone that really might have a hang up about your game into someone that
But
like,
it takes
is
time,
actually
right? So
quite supportive.
it
Yeah,
takes time.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. And
yeah.
that's what we are lacking of everyone of
That's
us.
that is the challenge. That is the
Yeah,
challenge. Yeah,
exactly,
but
exactly, exactly. Was it something, by the way, that you developed throughout the journey of being a game dev? This mentality of yours that you are kind with those people who like toxic with you, or was it something that you like always had in your life to
I
be
think
able to
I
deal
think
with people who are negative with you or
I don't
negative
think I was
towards you?
very good at dealing with people
Okay,
before.
okay,
But I've definitely gotten better at that. But like generally speaking, that's always been my approach. Is that like, look, the aggressiveness and all that sort of thing. That's not necessary here. Like that's not helping. Either person in the conversation. So I think that's partly me, but I've also gotten better at expressing it online because there were definitely. There was definitely a time where it's like I would just get really hurt and stroppy and try and ignore it or something like that. Whereas
sure.
now I try and elevate the conversation if I can.
I see, I see. Okay, so moving back to the franchise that you made, so
Sure.
what was the idea behind the art style of your game? Because as we see in our past, there are a lot of different forms of art styles that JRPGs used. But What was the idea behind your games that you like went down on the road with this art style to fit the
So,
story in?
and you just hit the nail on the head right there. I really wanted an art style
Okay,
that felt like a video game, right? I think 8-bit art is like quintessentially video games.
true, 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 true.
You don't have sort of the like, even by 16-bit, you're kind of getting to a more realistic and detailed standard of visuals. Whereas 8-bit just feels like it can't be anything else. Like there's nothing else that's ever existed if it looks like
True,
that.
very true. It's true. Yeah.
Um, and one of the things in 8-bit Adventures 1 and 2 is that I try and the idea was basically to take video gamey concepts, so things like the world being sort of overseen and managed by a omniscient computer, or the idea in the second game of like our villain being inspired by the concept of game glitches. Take those sort of elements and apply them as rules to a fantasy world. So if you had sort of a more developed or realistic looking
I
visual
see.
style, I think that would feel really it would feel like a bit of a
Out of
disconnect,
space,
right?
out of space, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And so I really wanted a game that sort of looked like a video
I
game,
see.
uh, but allowed players to connect with these concepts in a way that didn't feel like it was taking you out of the
True,
experience.
true, true. Understandable.
JRPGs are really big on abstraction. And even like in a JRPG when you like are walking around on the world map and you get like a screen effect that then like takes you into a battle. Like that's the kind of like abstraction that these games always use. Like everything is sort of representing a world or representing a way of telling the story rather than sort of being a hyper literal
True,
representation
very
of
true,
things.
very true, very true. And it's
I mean,
also
even
true.
turn-based combat.
Yeah, exactly,
So
and the
it's like
story
that,
as
yeah.
well. Like what we were talking about before, that the story core message that you mentioned of your
Mhm.
games is that people are connected together and or fighting against a big
Yeah.
evil thing that is always a boss or a big entity in the very ending of the games. That they are like trying to find peace by it. It's very true for most JRPGs that it's really reconnecting the whole group together, and I think it's a very nice message that you're giving with these games of yours, because like I said before too, that it's important for our humanity that we should learn to like work together, even if there is
Yeah.
no like crazy evil people, because like it's always like good and bad in people, but yeah.
Yeah. You're not going to end up fighting like a demigod in space
Yeah, but
like you do at the end of a
it's
JRPG.
weird, right? I always say this and I always joke with this. Don't get me wrong, anyone on the stream, please. But I always joke with this that it's so much easier in these games and in these movies. Like for example, in the Lord of the Rings
Yeah.
movies, when they are like getting together, going through that journey, even if they had death around it, or like I know it's the easy word is not correct in this case, but it's like easier than in our real life, because they are going through a journey, they are getting to the end, right, and finding the evil and gaining peace. But in our life it's like a consistent battle against all the odds that are surrounding us, right? So it's like
Yeah.
an
Our story
ongoing
doesn't end.
battle. Yeah, exactly, and it never has an ending, only if we die, right? And it sucks to realize that, right? That's why we play games, because we love those stories where there really is an end and there is peace after the end. But yeah, so it's
I mean,
very weird.
it's funny actually you mentioned Lord of the Rings because that is actually one of the things with Frodo is that he doesn't find peace, and that's why he goes
True,
to the Undying Lands at the end. Uh,
very true.
so yeah,
It
yeah.
represents
No,
our life
it's
in a
good.
bit, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, very true, very true. I love that you're understanding these stories and you're connected to JRPGs just like me. Yeah, like I said,
I love this stuff so much. Yeah.
me too. I will really have to play the first one as well, and I will really have to play the original first one. So let me know how I can get it after.
Look, I'm sure I can send it to you, but yeah,
Okay.
just be prepared.
Okay. So what about the music? You mentioned you are working a composer. Am I right about that?
Yeah, so we work with a great composer, Sebastian Cruz, and he's been with me since the original terrible version of the first game. So yeah, no, he's just a wonderful composer. He learned how to make 8-bit music
Oh,
using
okay.
Family Tracker
For
for
this
this game,
project? Oh,
like
nice,
for
nice,
for for
nice.
for the first game, yeah.
Nice,
So
nice, nice, nice,
and then
nice.
he's just kept sort of elevating and developing from there. So I mean, 8-bit Adventures 2, it's a 78 song soundtrack. Like it is huge.
Okay, that's a
Um,
lot.
yeah, and so he's applied all kinds of different styles to it, and used all these new techniques and all that sort of thing. So yeah, I mean certainly in my opinion, it's some of the best 8-bit music that's out there.
I see. Was it hard to find each other, by the way, or you were friends before the project?
I literally I was looking for a composer.
Okay.
I was on a forum, and he just made a post on the forum saying, "Hey, I'm looking to make music for a game." and yeah, because I mean this is what 2012, so like forums was still kind of a
A big
more
thing in people's
yeah
lives
a
on the
more
internet.
viable
Yeah,
method for connecting. Yeah,
yeah. I see. Do you believe in
but
perfect synergy, by the way, between team members? Do you feel like it was perfect synergy for the
I
first
think
time? Or it's something that
pretty
developed
close.
throughout the journey of making a game?
I mean, yeah, you definitely build up a rapport and a
Okay.
connection, but I mean, yeah, I was just really lucky that like everyone I worked with was just like, I mean, incredibly professional, incredibly talented, and just seemed to get what I was going
It
for.
was your vision, yeah.
Um, so yeah, it really, I mean, it really did feel like it just perfectly fit into place. Like it was very rare that I ever had to ask for revisions or anything like that. I mean, once we sort of were on the same page, it was a straight shot to the end of a project.
Nice feeling,
So
yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, honestly, really, yeah. I don't think most people necessarily encounter that, so I feel
True,
very
true,
fortunate
true, true.
to
It's very true. It's very true.
have that.
Yeah, it's very hard to find those people who you can connect with within the first seconds that you get to know
Yeah,
them. Yeah,
yeah.
it's rare. Yeah, and I'm happy for you that you had luck with those people. And
No, thank you. The
yeah,
funniest thing was, I started working with our artist, and then it was only like a few months later that we suddenly realized we were both Australian,
oh, okay.
like in the same state. So
Nice.
it was
Yeah,
like you just don't know online, right? It's just like you've got a name or a username even sometimes, and that's
and
it.
you're
So
passionate about the project that you're making together, and not
yeah,
realizing
yeah,
that
yeah.
we have outside life of it, yeah, and we are living close to
That's
each
it.
other.
Yeah.
Yeah, true, 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 true. Okay, okay. And so, what about the physical editions? What also interests me. So,
Mhm.
will there be any physical editions of your games, or are you planning to release any physical edition? Because as a person, you as a person, and me as a person, who both of us are appreciating the old school era games, which of course have been released in disc versions and sometimes in collector's version as well. Are you planning to do some stuff like that?
So basically, what I can say at the moment is I'm trying to make it happen.
Okay.
It's not, like it's not always the most straightforward path.
Okay.
But yeah, now that we're sort of past the digital, that's sort of my next major goal is
Nice,
is
nice,
to
nice.
make make the physical happen. So yeah, no, I mean, I'm really hoping we can make it happen because I mean, like I'm a huge collector. I love classic games,
Yeah, me too, me too.
and just like that idea of like a box and a manual
True,
and a
true. Or a map.
physical yeah, oh, yeah, a map would be
Yeah.
great. Like and just having a cartridge or a disc to just actually play the game on,
Yeah,
and like you had that then forever.
or a creature manual. It's not a manual. It's what is it called? A
Oh,
creature
like a guide.
collection. Yeah, which collects all the creatures with all the stats. It's not
Oh,
like
bestiary.
yeah, bestiary. Yeah, yeah. True, true,
Yeah,
true, true.
yeah,
Very true. Yeah, yeah. It would be also
yeah.
nice
That
touch to
kind of thing
that.
would be awesome.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah. Okay.
but yeah, no. Unfortunately, like there's not really anything to report on that yet. I'm trying.
I see. I see. Can you see yourself for the future? By the way, making games like forever for your whole life. How do you feel
I
about
hope
that?
so.
Okay.
Unfortunately, that's the kind of thing where it basically comes down to like, okay, either I need to make enough money to keep doing it, or I
True.
need to like stop doing indie development and like get a job at some other on another team or at a larger company. So that will basically be what determines my trajectory. But I hope so, and I mean, if that's the way things end up going, then I hope the positive reception to 8-Bit Adventures 2 will sort of help me to break into that market. But I'm working on two other projects at the moment, as well as
Okay.
the free DLC for 8-Bit Adventures 2. So I am hoping to keep doing this for a little while.
I see. I see. By the way, are you planning to work on other games as well, or are you like planning to do more sequels, or it's like a very secret thing you cannot talk about now?
Well, I'm not working on like an 8-Bit Adventures 3 yet.
Okay.
I know what would happen in it,
Okay.
but I'm not actually at that point yet. So yeah, no, it would sort of be some shorter projects for a little while that I can get out in rapid succession. So
I see.
one project I would say that you should be hearing about next year.
Okay.
So
Okay. That's
yeah,
that's quite like soon. I would say. Yeah.
yeah,
Okay.
yes, we'll see how I go, but
Okay.
that's the plan.
Okay. Okay. And are you like
I'm very excited about one.
okay? Okay. Are you planning to stick with the 8-bit style, by the way, for those games that are not connected with?
That one would not be, no.
Oh, okay, 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 okay.
No, that's a different art style again.
I see, I I see.
But certainly in future, I still think the 8-bit art style has some legs.
By the way, you mentioned the cartridges. So were you like planning to release 8-bit adventure franchise for GBA? Maybe.
Oh no, no! I just sort of mean like the Switch cartridges. Like
Oh
technically,
yeah,
that's a
I know,
cartridge and
but
not
yeah,
a
I
yeah,
know
yeah.
that you mentioned those, but were you like planning to port it to GBA, or would it be
It,
possible, or it wouldn't be?
it was hard enough getting it running on Switch. Running
Okay,
getting it running on a GBA would not be,
okay.
or any kind of old system would
Like
probably not be
remake it and
feasible.
make it possible. Yeah,
I mean, it would be really cool. I'd love to see someone try it, but yeah, I have no idea how you'd make that happen.
I see. Okay, okay. So throughout the development journey of all those long years that you mentioned for the very first part of the franchise and the second sequel, or the second part as a sequel, what was the hardest part of the development process of those two games, if you can
It's a
remember,
good
or
question.
if more of if there are more parts, you can mention more as well. Sorry for that.
Yeah, I no, I hmm. It's always a hard thing, right? Because it's sort of just a continuing process.
Okay.
I think parts of COVID lockdown were hard. But really, I think it was just that aspect of like the development just took so long, and you reach the point where it's like you're burned out. You really want to do something else, but you've got to keep plugging away at the same things. So I think really it was just the length.
I see.
I'm pretty dedicated. Like I could sort of keep my head down and keep working, but sort of around year 5, it started to get it was hard to see the light at the end of the tunnel, and
I
that
see.
sort of created a sense of burnout and you know
I see.
yeah. So I think that was probably the hardest part.
And what helped you through those times? Like, what helped you not giving up on making and releasing your game?
Stubbornness,
Okay.
uh, I guess. But yeah, really, I think just a belief in like, okay, like what we've got here is really good. Like anytime I play like chunks of the game, it's like I think this is coming out exactly as I want it to. I think it is hitting the right notes. So it was really just sort of believing in the vision and the work of myself and the other team members, and just like feeling like, okay, if we can take this to the finish line, it is going to be a good game. So I could definitely see how it would all come together, and so that sort of is what got me through. But I mean, there were definitely times where I just need to take a bit of a break, right? Like for a day or two or something like that. Just do something else for a little while. Focus on a different aspect of the project, even maybe. But I think that can help you just to recharge a little bit.
I see. I see. So, in the middle of our interview, we were talking about bosses. Who was your favorite boss to design in the first part of 8-bit adventures and in the second part of
Oh,
8-bit adventures?
oh, that's a good question. I think in the first one, it's probably actually I might end up with the same answer for both of them. It's probably on the first one. It's the final boss,
Okay.
just because it's like I think it's something like 8 phases. It changes a lot throughout the
Okay.
fight, and you've got obviously this really amped up music. And so it was fun to try and come up with like how many different ways we could sort of
I
play
see.
with the fight and keep it going and ratchet up the intensity. Um, Especially at the end of that fight when it really does seem like for a short time it seems like there's really no way you can win, and that's always a fun thing to sort of inflict on the player, is just like give them a sense of what do I do. Um, but no, I think that one works really well, and it sort of also uses some of the items you've collected along the way and all
I see.
that throughout the game. So I think that's effective. And then honestly, probably it is the final boss in 8-Bit Adventures 2 as well, just because every time I play through that on a test playthrough, I feel so amped up. Like it feels really dramatic, and like it hits the exact notes that I wanted it to hit. And yeah, I think it really sort of uh, ends up hitting that idea of unity that we were talking about.
Yeah.
I think it hits that really well with the final phase of that battle and sort of how it plays out. So that was a really fun one to design, because that's when you get to that kind of a fight, like a final boss, you sort of can put a little more budget into it. it's not just like a normal boss along the road. It's one of the ones where you can sort of put more time and effort and care. So yeah, I'm very proud of how that one turned out.
I see. I see. Sorry
It's
for that.
probably a bit of a boring answer.
No, it's not. It's not. It's not. I love that. I love that. And so we were talking about like you did not want your game to be that much hard that those JRPGs used to be in the past that we all grow up on. So what do you think? Like, what was the goal with the length of your games? Like, because if you remember those times, just like me, all those JRPGs were like more than 100 plus hours, so to beat. And were you aiming for something similar with the length of your games, or was something?
It's really funny with classic JRPGs, right? Because the reason they took so long to beat is because we were all kids and we were all terrible at them.
True, it's true, it's
When
true,
you
it's
play
true.
them as an adult now, a
True,
lot of
it's
those
true.
games are like 30 to 40, 50
True,
hours.
true, true.
But I had the exact same experience as a kid where it's like
True, true.
I think I had like 120 hours on my Final
Yeah, but
Fantasy
if you
7
were like a
playthrough.
complete, if you wanted to complete it for like maxing out everything, it took like more than one
That's
k
true.
hours. So like, I remember
That's true.
myself collecting everything in Final Fantasy X, and it took me like, I don't know,
10,
three or
10 was never ending.
400 hours and even more. Yeah, like you could farm
Me too.
forever any boss on those grass fields, and yeah.
Well, you and I would have had the what was the international edition, right?
Yeah.
Because of our region. Like I know that the American version didn't have like the Dark Aeons
Yeah.
and like a lot of the
Yeah,
extra
yeah.
content at the end, right? So like the version we got was absolutely stacked. I mean,
True, true, true,
absolutely the
true.
same for me. Like that one took insanely long. But I mean, if you just want to do like the story of Final Fantasy X, 40
It's
hours
like 40
probably would.
hours, yeah. Yeah, if you
Yeah,
know what to do in that game, of course, yeah.
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 So so it varies. But with 8-bit Adventures 2, the game is 30 to 40 hours
I see,
basically
I see. So it's similar
in
to
length.
those.
You can sort of push through if like in about 25 if you sort of mainly just like beeline the story.
I see.
But obviously like there's a lot of optional content and things like that. So it's a little bit longer than I actually intended it to be. But I think it actually ends up being a really good amount because I don't think it's like beyond the pale of length if you're if you've only got like a few hours a week to play. But also if you want something that is like a meaty game experience, I think it sort of fulfills that as well. So it's sort of like a middle ground, I guess you'd say.
I see. I see. So JRPGs are always like NPC story heavy, in my belief. What is your or who or what kind of NPC is your favorite with their stories in your games? We talked about bosses.
Ooh.
Now let's switch to like more positive vibes.
NPCs are always fun, right? Because in a lot of cases, they're just townsfolk. So they're just people you do like, you talk to once, right?
True.
And they have to say something interesting or helpful or
Or
funny.
silly,
And
yeah.
so yeah, so like writing those is always just like one of the most fun parts of a job because you can do all sorts of things. Like there's a town where you can talk to all the snowmen,
Okay.
and it's just like this, it's just this very silly thing, but they all have lines like there's one snowman that doesn't have a carrot nose, and so he just has a line that's like, I have no nose and I must sneeze. Something like just like a silly thing like that is always great fun. And then there's but on the other side of the spectrum, like there's a woman in a city that's like looking at this lone tree and she's sort of projecting like her own loneliness onto the tree, and coming to that realization. Or there's the main challenge is, right, there's like several hundred NPCs in the game technically, and so trying to remember everything is
Okay,
always
that's a
a
lot.
bit tricky. But there's yeah, a lot of towns and a lot of
Your
and
book is a
towns need
codex of those
NPCs.
people in your game, right? Or your head, sorry, is a
Yeah,
book
yeah,
of
that's it.
a codex of those
Um,
people in the game. Yeah.
but I will say the final town, which is a spoiler as to what it is and what's going on there, that was by far the most fun to write.
I see.
There is some. I think it walks an interesting line between very funny and very melancholy or tragic or something like that. it's a very interesting one because of the context, and a lot of my favorite lines for NPCs are in there. I think it's fun trying to tell a complete story for a character in just like a few lines, right?
True, 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 very true,
Um,
very true.
but I mean, in terms of sort of the main story, right? Like if you're actually talking about NPCs that you like significantly interact with, I think the computer is a very interesting one. Just because of the idea that like you have this very sort of somewhat all powerful creature that is also somewhat cold and calculating. It's trying to sort of do the right thing, but the way it goes about it is often suspect, and so I think it creates a really interesting dichotomy between sort of that character and the player's own party. So
I
yeah.
see, I see. Okay, okay. We talked about a lot of topics here. Now, before I ask some more questions, are you down to answer some questions from my community as well?
Yeah, absolutely. Sure.
Nice, nice, nice. Okay, let us know if there is any question. Now it's the time, ladies and gentlemen. Let us know. Let us know. Oh, okay. Dr. Nefarious ask him if he played Helix 2.
Helix 2. Oh, those are indie games, right? Like the Helix series. I know
I'm not
there's like
sure,
a
but I think yes. Let me Google it.
it's like a moon shaped smiling character. I think.
Yeah, it's a turn-based RPG made by Mason Lindrath, if I'm pronouncing
Oh,
the
sorry.
name correct.
Okay.
Let me,
Right.
let me, let me, let me send you over the
That's it. Helix. Yes. Okay.
Hilix.
I haven't
Sorry, I
played.
might
I
pronounce it
haven't.
wrong. Yeah, sorry.
No, that's all right. I just I was trying to remember exactly what the name was. I thought you were right. Yeah, no, I haven't played it, but I think I've seen footage of it, and I think it's incredibly interesting game. I love
I
sort
haven't
of
either, so I will have to play that too. Yeah.
the stylization of it. Like it's got sort of like early PC game vibes with some of the
Yeah.
colors.
Neverhood vibes, or something similar to
Yes,
that. Yeah, yeah,
yep.
yeah, yeah.
No, I'm and it's like obviously it's incredible the amount of success that that developer has been able to achieve with both games. So yeah, no, I think the hardest part about like making games is that you have very little time to play games, and so I'm always very much behind
Very true.
on
Very
everything.
true. Very true. Yeah. Okay. He also. Sorry. Let me read the comment. Oh, Dr. Nefarious is saying that I also played the first 8-bit adventure, and I'm yet to play the second one. Oh, nice, nice, nice. I'm
Oh,
not
thank you very
sure.
much.
I'm not sure if Nefarious is still here, but thank you for your question and thank you for the answer, by the way. Thank you.
And thanks for buying the first game.
Yeah, and try out the second one. Don't wait for that.
There's a demo on every console now, so yeah, anyone can give it a go.
Mini is asking in Hungarian, I will translate it for you, how hard it is for the graphical parts of your games to develop these graphics, to make it happen on the screen.
So we have a wonderful artist, Jaram Fahi,
Okay.
and so he like puts everything together.
Okay.
But then, sort of making it happen in game, we had to develop a shader system. So essentially, the NES never used transparency because it just didn't have the capacity for it. So instead, what it would do is it would essentially step down and up the palette
Okay.
to create like a fade out to black or like a fade to white or something like that.
I see, I see, I see.
And so to sort of complete the visual style, we had to essentially adapt to doing that. So we had to make sure that like we weren't using any transparency as much as we could, and and make sure we like the color palette was being maintained in everything. So it definitely presented a lot of hurdles in that way. But yeah, I think it was a graphical style that like once once I started to understand it as well as the artist did, then it all kind of fell into place, and I was able to sort of keep things consistent across the whole game with implementation. But yeah, no, it's there's a lot to consider that you wouldn't ever think of normally unless you were actually putting a game together in this style.
I see. Thank you for the question and answer as well. Sorry
Yes,
for
thank
that.
you very much.
Minnie is also asking, does it take more time than to have any other graphical art style in a game?
That's a
Like
good
the
question.
developing process?
I think in terms of hours, it's probably less,
Okay.
just because essentially you're drawing sprites at a smaller size.
Okay.
So our sprites are originally drawn essentially at a 16 by 16 size per tile,
Okay.
and that includes characters and things like that. Whereas if you're going to say use a 32-bit art style, you're drawing characters at say like a 48 by 48 size, and that's going to be much more time consuming to get right. And so I think it's expedient in some ways, but then you also one of the challenges we kept running into was figuring out how to fit certain things and how to represent certain things within the small space and the sort of shrunk down style. So there was definitely a lot of conceptual work that went into it, even though the process itself was shorter on hours. So yeah, it's a mix, I'd say. In some ways, yes. In some ways, no.
I see. I see. Okay. Thank you again for the question and answer as well. Thank you.
No, pleasure. Great question.
Okay. Any more question? Bármilyen más kérdés? By the way, so before any other people will ask any question on my chat, so how did you made it happen to have this very cool mix of like the old school graphical style and still having those cutscenes in a more modern way? Because when I played the second part of this franchise, I remember myself being shocked and amazed by the cutscenes that they are like still those old school vibes, having those old school vibes, but they are still in this modern size. So it's like or modern feeling that we are connected throughout all these new games in our industry right now.
So when you say that, like, do you mean like the ones where you get sort of the like sort of I don't know what you'd say, full detailed images? I tend to call them cinematic shots, right?
Yeah, because like your game is like having everything from those era that we like used to have and visit these really like how to say it, like very pixelated Game Boy style games, which were like which I loved and I still love, because I have this show of mine where I play with handheld consoles and with my GB, and I still love those. And
oh, that's great.
yeah, and still you have been able to manage the feeling that you're playing these games like they were made now, and they are made now, of course, but like we always wanted to have those games on that level that your game is on now. So that's my question.
Oh, for sure, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think it really just comes down to applying more modern, well, I mean, not necessarily modern, like as in current, but sort of like
Yeah, it's probably not the
PS1,
right word, but
PS1, PS2, right? The
true.
of philosophies
Yeah,
to storytelling and presentation. Like we've got like the Ninja Gaiden NES style like cinematics, like I mentioned, and we sort of like my idea with them was to use it like a PS1 game or a PS2 game used like their CGI cutscenes. Trying to like sort of amplify big moments, but then in sort of the normal cutscenes, it was really just about trying to portray as much personality as possible at any given moment. And so that was generally through character animations and expressions and stuff like that. Through framing the shot as well as we could, or having some sort of cool background. It really varied depending on what the scene needed, but just trying to sort of keep everything feeling
together,
lively and animated, and not just the text, right? Because like a lot of NES games were like the story was told in the text, and there wasn't really much going on in the rest of the screen when the story was being
True,
told.
very true, very
Um,
true. And it's
so
also easier
yeah,
to
yeah,
pick up for those people who, for example, are not into that much of reading. Because I'm that guy who reads
yeah.
everything in games, but I know that there are a lot
Me
of
too.
people
Yeah,
who are just watching the cutscenes and not reacting to any NPC
yeah.
conversation or anything else. And
It's a very story heavy game,
true, true,
but
true, true.
yeah, I think trying to trying to make the presentation as interesting as possible
True, true, true.
is
And like
basically
you
what it comes down
said,
to.
is that we can also like connect to those small NPC conversations that you just mentioned before, right? So it's also
Yeah,
important to like be aware of those smaller things, but of course they are not that small. It's just people view it that way. But yeah, 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 yeah.
yeah, they do, they do.
Yeah. Okay. Any more questions? Bármilyen más kérdés, hölgyek, urak? Any more questions? Any more questions? Let us know. Let us know. Bármilyen más kérdés? Oh, I know. I finally, my messy head remembers the question that I wanted to ask during the whole interview. So sorry for that. So
That's
my
right.
question was originally that I wanted also to ask is that are you always influenced by everything when you are making your games? Like, are you, because you mentioned that you were stubborn about like continuing your making of these games and you never gave up, but is it something that comes with that whenever you say something you are influenced by that and you are bringing that to like making your own games? How do you feel
I think
about that?
I definitely do,
Okay.
because like any game that I play, I generally try and sort of learn from. Even if the game isn't like amazing, there's usually something that they've done interestingly, or there's some idea to learn from. Like for example, in 8-Bit Adventures 2, there you can get boss tips from the save point at any time.
I see.
So if you want to know what's coming up and like know what you should do to prepare, like the save point will give you a tip.
I see.
And that was inspired by me playing Shadow Hearts on the PS2.
Okay.
And one of the things I found in that game was that every boss had an elemental weakness, and you basically needed to bring the elemental weakness
True,
into
true,
each
true,
fight.
true, true,
But you couldn't swap party members within the fight, so you basically had to know ahead of time,
true. You have to
what the boss
plan.
was. And so
Yeah.
it just occurred to me, from playing that, but like, oh, it'd be like really good if you knew this ahead of time, because like the design of the bosses makes sense, but you just kind of need that foreknowledge. So I thought of that way to add it to the game. But like just generally speaking, I'm mostly influenced by games that are older. I try not to sort of take too much influence
I
from
see.
whatever's coming out now, just because obviously when something's brand new, you sort of what would you say? It's new. It hasn't sort of been analyzed. There'll be a lot of trend chases and all that sort of
True,
thing.
true, true, true.
And I don't want to sort of change what the game is at its core. So usually I just sort of pull little ideas from sort of the older games that I play.
I see. I see. And you mentioned playing games. So how has your perspective changed in a way that now you're making games onto viewing games as a player? Has it changed in any form? Like, are you
Yeah,
now?
it never turns off.
Okay.
There's like you're always sort of analyzing what's going on in the game from sort of a developer
But has it
perspective, and
gotten for the worse or for the better? Like, are you more like criticizing games, or are you like more understanding of games as a player now that you are making games yourself?
it doesn't make me more critical.
Okay.
I think it's kind of just an extra layer of sort of
Okay.
thinking about what's going on under the hood and sort of what the game design choice was here. And I mean, I think a lot of the time it makes me actually appreciate the small stuff a lot more.
I see.
uh but sometimes it probably also does make me sort of think like, I see what you're going for here, developer, but I don't think it quite hit. So there's sort of that perspective as well. But yeah, I mean, it definitely makes you more analytical about games, I
I
think.
see. I see. Does it kill the fun of playing games, or
No,
no? Or no?
no, honestly, it really doesn't. I've always enjoyed sort of understanding
Yeah,
games
you told us that at the beginning of
yeah,
our interview. Yeah, true, true,
yeah.
very true.
So I think
You grew
it's
up
sort of
with
just
that
heightened my
mentality, so
appreciation.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah. Okay. So, topic that has been brought up at some of my dev live shows would be very interesting to ask you about as well. So, how do you
Please.
feel about because we talked about like the ending, right? So it connects with
Mhm.
this question of mine that I came up with again now. So, what? How do you feel about like? Not the ending of the story, but ending of your project and moving to another project. What feeling do you have during those times when you had to like say that, okay, now I'm done with the first one, now I need to focus on the second one? Was it easy to in a sort of vein, of course we are not letting go anything, but was it like
Mhm.
easier for you to move on to the next project, or how do you feel about that? Because a lot of
Yeah,
people suffer for this like break time when they are like having those ideas when they can like move to another project, but they can't leave their past projects behind. How do you feel about that?
yeah. I think just because I've done it for so long, it never fully leaves.
I see. And
But
it's
there was
understandable,
definitely
right? So
yeah, yeah. But there's also like a real sense of relief of
I see.
just like having this particular chapter completed and out there and sort of well received. And that and I think if I felt like this, like I was completely done with the series and done with like all these characters completely, then I might feel more I don't know what you'd say impacted by it. I guess, but ideally I'm probably not completely done with it yet, so there's sort of still the connection sort of still feels meaningful and like active. um but certainly, I mean, the second game would have has definitely like concluded several characters, and so I did feel a bit emotional about like ending those stories and that kind of thing. So yeah, it's sort of an ongoing process. It's like I created the ending of the game several years ago, and so that felt like a real like major cutoff point. But then I still kept working on the game after that, so it sort of goes up and down. But I have a feeling it will never fully leave.
I see. I see. And it's true because like we're talking about it, it's you in the game, right? So it's your experience,
Yeah,
it's your
exactly.
life, so it will never
There's that real
fade away.
connection.
True, 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 true. Very true. Choosing time, by the way, which one of your games is more close to you? I hate to choose myself, but it's always easier to ask others to choose it, right? So I'm the
No,
devil right now. So which one is more close to you?
oh, it's got to be Ape Adventures too. It's like 9 years, like super detailed personal story that I got to bring to life with
Okay,
like an artist and a composer and all this sort of thing. So it's yeah, it's definitely got to be that one.
I see, I see.
I like all. I obviously I feel connected to all of them, but I think that's like the real special one.
I see. I see. Would you, by the way, regret if you haven't stepped into your shoes and make the first step in order to be able to release your games and to be working on these games? Would you regret?
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, I guess again, obviously I wouldn't know what I would be missing, I suppose, but I would definitely knowing what I know, I would definitely regret it if that didn't happen. And the reason I like to talk about that sort of first not very good version of the first game is just because like essentially what happened is my worst game became my best, and then that led to an even better game. So it's
True.
the way that you sort of build up your skills
That's the passion
and
in you, right? So, and the stubbornness
yeah,
that you
yeah,
mentioned, yeah.
exactly,
Yeah. In a
exactly.
positive way, of course, don't get me wrong, in a positive way.
Hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
No, 100%. Well, mostly a positive way anyway. But yeah, no, I think that you know, I always want like developers that are starting out not to feel like everything rides on your first project,
True, true, true.
because you can mess it up and you can still
True.
just like come back stronger.
True, true, very true, very true. What would be the other advices to people that are starting now to make games, or if they are made games but they are still struggling making games? What would be
But
the
I've got
tips
a
that
piece of advice. I give to everyone who asks, and it basically what it is start. Okay, think of the smallest game you can, and then halve that game,
Okay.
and then make that and finish it. One of the things that I really learned from like sort of planning out 8-bit adventures too was that it's great to have a plan, but if you don't yet understand the full like scope and scale of game development, you end up working on a game for 9 years. So really, I think the most important thing is to like make a game, finish it. You'll learn so much from that first experience, and then and if you make it small, like you'll finish it in a reasonable amount of time. Then you can move on to something a little bit bigger, and then a little bit bigger, and then a little bit bigger, and so just do that gradual upwards curve. I think that is the most effective way to make games, and certainly in terms of viability, from a lot of the developers I talk to now, it really seems like the future is going to be okay. Like the indies, anyway, in general, is going to be like, okay, how can we make a game in 2 years? Because it's a lot easier to
True, true,
make a
true,
like
true,
a project viable and
true,
like earn a really good return on it and that sort of thing. Like all the realities
true,
of life and game development. If you can sort of do that kind of turnaround.
true, very true.
Um, so yeah, I think if you get experience with small projects, that's going to not only help you at the start, but it's probably going to help in the long term as well. And it
True,
will teach you scale, which is really
true,
important.
true. And sometimes we don't realize as players, in my opinion, that those people who are making games are just human beings and players as well. So they have real life issues in their life, right? And they have to pay the
Well,
bills
that's
as
it.
well. So it's not sure why they are like taking so long to make a game, but it's probably because they have those real life issues in their life as well. So it's not just making a game and fun and having all the fun with making those games, but to live their life as well and to be there
No,
for
it's
their family,
I
provide and doing everything that is a must
that's
thing
it.
in our society. So eat, drink, sleep, it's all in our society important things, but yeah, we cannot control. But
I,
yeah,
I never realized how much work was involved in game development until I started doing it. I don't think anyone really does. Like
true, true,
it is
true.
just it is immense even for a small project. So yeah, I think the sooner you can get a handle on that and understand it, the like better it will serve your career going
True,
forward.
true. And I think that for the first experience, it would be stupid to downscale the vision because, like, if you downscale it and you know exactly how many hours you need to make your game, that it wouldn't be that special, right? So you need to make those mistakes, in my opinion, to learn from your own
Yeah.
experiences and to develop yourself as a person as well, to be able to get
Well,
that game out
that's
to the
true.
market so people can play it. Yeah,
Definitely don't be afraid of making mistakes because you will
true.
like a mistake is not a failure. It's like something that you learn from and
Learn
grow
from,
from
yeah, true,
every
true.
single time. So
Very
yeah.
true. Yeah, yeah. Okay, we talked here a lot of topics about. So I'm out of questions, but if you have anything that we haven't touched and you would like to talk about, I'm open ears. So could you think
Oh,
of
that's a good
anything
question.
that we missed or might have missed and I might have missed asking or you would like to talk about?
I mean, one thing I should say, because you were telling me that your favorite JRPG is Final Fantasy X.
Okay,
I mean, 8-Bit Adventures 2's battle system is 100% influenced by Final Fantasy X. That
nice.
was the foundation of the whole system, and so I feel like there's a lot of us out there that like love and adore Final Fantasy X, and like that battle system does not show up very often. So
True, true, true.
yeah, I just really want to
I
put that out there because I'm really proud of like getting to play with and sort of I mean, not necessarily evolve, but definitely like take that battle system in a few different directions.
I see. It's interesting, by the way, because like Final Fantasy X had everything in it, right? So it's not just the
Mm,
story, the music, the battle system, but really everything. I
everything.
remember myself because I'm always saying this, not just in my Dev Live shows or show episodes, but on stream and to my friends as well. That I'm always replaying every year. I replay Final Fantasy X, and I'm never like killing Sin at the very end because like the story behind it is that my grandfather passed away when I was 12, and that's how I connected
Oh,
to that game. And I'm never
mm,
finishing it because when I was playing with that game and he passed away, I realized that I grew up and I still wanted to be a kid, and I always like I said before, stop at the very ending of the game. Uh, and
I
it's very
understand that.
funny because, and very interesting in a way because whenever I experienced the story of the game throughout those years from that time. I always experienced it in another way, always related to that segment of my year and life that I was in. So it was like a very,
Mm.
fresh experience, if you could say so. And sometimes it was very like sad, sometimes it was like very chill, sometimes it was like very funny, sometimes it was like more gameplay heavy, sometimes it was like more story based. And I remember myself every year I played it through, even now. I always experience something very different from the story perspective and the message that the game wanted me to experience. And I always say this that I saw that high wall that Square Enix had in their studio where people could write their names and stories,
Yeah,
before.
yeah.
I love that video about it, about Final Fantasy X, and I always wanted to get there somehow. I'm still planning to
Oh, for sure.
get
Yeah.
there, yeah. So, and it really like reminded me that it's so nice that we have games, and with the power of games we can connect to all those memories of ours, right, as kids, and to like have those memories still in our pocket or in our bag with us to live through our lives. So yeah, yeah,
Absolutely beautiful. That's that's the kind of experience that I think like really does like just tie you to
true,
a game,
true,
and
true,
to just like the like obviously the developers of Final Fantasy X were really trying to say something, and I mean
true,
if you read interviews, like they really sort of like that team was really trying to make sort of their
true,
magnum opus, and I think
true, true,
yeah
true,
they really succeeded with that,
true,
and but particularly like the way you're right, the way that some of these games do intersect with real life and how we
true,
connect with them
true.
through our experiences, I think is just such a such a meaningful thing. Yeah.
Yeah, because it's not like separating any topic from each other, but it's connecting all
Mm.
the topics together, and it's like bringing all the segments of topics together as a story as a whole, right? So it's like having
Yeah, exactly.
talked about love or about politics or about war, about racism. Final Fantasy had that all, and I loved that, and I loved the realization of those topics when I grew up and realizing these topics in my real life. Not just being a kid and running around and learning stuff, but actually like realizing what life is about. And I always say this that I was the happiest when I was playing it for the first time because I wasn't like. Realizing all the bad stuff happening in my life, around me, in our
Yeah.
society. And it's very interesting that I'm always wanting to go back to that time when I played it for the first time and might not understanding the story as a whole, but enjoying the vibes, the graphics, the gameplay parts, and also the story, but not that deeply. So it's interesting.
That's the thing. It's funny to think that like when you're a kid, it's like you don't understand a lot of the details, but
Yeah.
you still
But you're still
absorb
enjoying, yeah,
the
and
impact of it.
absorb, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And it's very interesting because I feel like even if we are kids, we are not understanding it, but we are, like you said, absorbing it at our back of mind or our minds. We
Yeah.
understand it, right? So somehow we are connected with it, even if we don't know the meaning of death, or the war or something, very bad in our society. We still can relate to those things, in my opinion, of course in a more
Yeah.
childish but a more open way to that. So not
I
that
guess it's
strict
it's
box that we get in as adult, that's these strict rules that we live in. Yeah,
I guess it's because games like that, like they didn't, because they were sort of like aimed at a slightly older audience than necessarily like, you know, I mean, necessarily than I was when I played them anyway. I think it's sort of like it's the difference between like an adult talking down to a child versus an adult like talking straight with a child, right?
true, true, true.
And I feel like those games like really were just like talking to me sort of like on a higher level, and so that's even though I didn't understand everything, I sort of yeah I took something away from that. So
Consumed and enjoyed it. Yeah, yeah,
yeah, yeah,
yeah, yeah. And that's the beautiful part about your games as well, because I felt like whenever when the first time I saw the trailer of the second part. My bad that I didn't know the first part exists back then. It was my
Most people don't. That's fine.
yeah, it was my bad because like I told you before our interview that I wasn't a PC player back then. So when it came
It makes
out,
total
so
sense. Yeah.
I was more of a console guy around that time, and now I switched back again to play on PC too. But when I first saw the trailer of the second part of your game, it really reminded my experience for Final Fantasy X, and I knew that okay, I need to have this person in my show and to talk with him and to realize how he made this game, and yeah.
Thank you very much.
So,
Yeah, I love hearing that, right? Because it wasn't the aesthetic that reminded you of Final Fantasy X, right? It was like the vibe of that style of game, that style of storytelling, and all the I like evoking anything Final Fantasy is always the highest of compliments. So thank you.
yeah, thank you. By the way, thank you for that. Thank you. And I cannot wait to actually like play the first one and then the second one, because like I said, it was my mistake to start because I was stubborn and I wanted to start the second part. I couldn't wait.
No, I want you to start the second, so that's fine with me.
Yeah. Okay. I cannot see any more questions, but if people will wants to ask any questions, they will be able to on the Discord. And yeah, so like I said, I will need some more of your minutes. But for those who were watching us, thank you that everyone who joined here live or will be watching our video or edited version of this interview. And thank you for having or being with us today. And thank you for your honesty as well. For sharing.
Thank you for the invite, and thanks for everyone watching. And yeah, no, thank you very much, Ottó.
Thank you, my friend.
Much appreciated.
Thank you, and yeah, have a nice day or night, depending where you live. Everyone who watched us live or will be watching the VOD version. Thank you, everyone. Bye bye. And don't forget to try out the game. Marketing time.
Yeah.